gentlemen, what the world has been waiting for, what the world needs now, the one, the only, amazing, original, Johnny Blaze. Often imitated, but never duplicated. There's Johnny.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to the original Johnny Blaze Show. It's always great to be here as I blaze right in with my karate kick. Let's have a blazing hot fun time. I'm getting married. Getting married is just like getting convicted of a crime. They both require witnesses. I dated this one woman for about a month, and after a third date, she told me she could no longer see me. I asked her why. She told me I'm going through 3 stages of men. First, there's Mr. Cute, and then there's Mr. Bad Boy, and eventually there's Mr. Steady Income. I'm sorry to tell you this, but you don't belong on my stage. This one woman kept asking me what my big dream is, and eventually I told her if I could go back in time, I would have loved to hang out backstage with Elvis, and then go to Graceland and fly around in Elvis's jet. And then this woman stopped me and said, "No, I'm asking about your career goals." And the room became suddenly silent. Air traffic control, give me your position. Pilot, I'm next to a cloud that looks like a lion. America was founded on a democracy where the majority rules. Marriage is a system where every decision ends in a tie, and you lose no matter what. After 20 years of marriage, the wife complained to her husband, "I was an idiot when I married you." The husband replied, "You're right, but I was too hot and horny to let you know." We have a blazing hot fun show with a special guest, and she's a multi-talented, award-winning singer, songwriter, entertainer, and all-around performer. So please give a big warm welcome and say hello to Melanie Safka, also known as Melanie to many of her fans all over the world. Hey, Melanie, welcome to the Johnny Blaze Show. Yes.
Hi.
Hey, you're looking so lovely and so beautiful there. You really are.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome, Melanie. It's a pleasure. I'm glad that we got everything straightened out here. That was nice of your son, Bo, to help us. Anyway, you know, everybody in life, they have a most unique story and a usual story in their life. Please give me a good rundown. Tell me the story of how did you get started in entertainment?
Oh, well, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, so my dad had aspirations of me going to college and having a coming out party or something. He wanted me to marry well and do those things that people who grew up in the era that I did, if they were going to live a happy, successful life. So but in high school, I was kind of an oddball. I didn't quite blend, and I don't know if it was because we moved a lot. I grew up in New York City, and then when I was in my teens, we moved to a very provincial area of New Jersey, and I instantly was, pegged as, I don't know, whatever people want to call a person who's shy. Sometimes it comes off as aloof or whatever, but I was just shy and an introvert. And so I didn't blend, and I didn't do well in school socially or even my grades were kind of fair. And as soon as I was looking to graduate and never go back to school again, and my dad wouldn't hear of that, so we went to different counselors and tried to find schools that I could go to that would be, something that was a fit, and we just never did. And but he would not hear of me not continuing education. So right before graduation, I decided to run away from home. And I didn't just run away from New Jersey to New York or something like that. I ran away from New Jersey to California. So there I was, and it was the time when you didn't have to show ID to get on a plane. So I changed my name. My name was Eve Dane. I ran away to California, and one thing led to another, and I ended up, because it was before instant communication, and they didn't have a way to, they knew that parents were looking for someone in California or all over the nation, I guess, but they didn't know where I went. So they had put out word, that they were looking for a girl who ran away. And I ended up in a girls' detention home because they got me that far, So when I got there, I expected that my parents were going to be waiting for me or something, but that didn't exactly happen. And I was in this girls' detention home for 2 weeks, and you'd think that all kinds of songs would come out of it, but nothing but terror came out of it. And when you're that young, and you don't think your parents are going to be devastated. You think, well, they'll be fine. I was going through all this stuff, so my dad actually had to go out to California and pick me up at the girls' detention home, and I can't even imagine what I must have looked like, but I was so happy to see him. And on the way home, we decided I would go to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, because that was, I wasn't really qualified to go to a Juilliard or a Berkeley, because those were, that was music education for people who had already learned how to read and write music and knew music theory to some degree. I didn't. I was just a person who sang since they were 4 years old, but I didn't have any kind of training like that. So the only option was kind of sort of performing. So it was the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I auditioned. I got in, and after graduation, I shared a room with 4 girls, and we were all aspiring actresses. And when it was time to graduate, everybody was going to casting calls, and I was such an introvert that what didn't come naturally to me. So, but I would read the trade papers and think, well, something will look like it's, will resonate with me. And I went to, I saw an audition. They were calling for a girl who played the guitar. And that was very unusual then, because it was a guy thing. Guys played guitars. Girls didn't much play guitar. It was mostly a man thing. So I played the guitar, and I thought, this is like a sign that I'm supposed to go to this audition. And it was for a very esoteric play called Dark of the Moon. And they needed a girl who played the guitar and could sing Barbara Allen. And I was going to play the part of Barbara Allen. So I went to this audition. The problem was, I was coming in, at that point, I had moved back with my parents. I was coming in from New Jersey, and I got into New York, and I went to the address, and I realized that I don't have the room number where the audition was being held. Now, of course, being late would be unforgivable, so I started getting really nervous. And right in front of the building where this audition was being held, there was a doorman, and he had, I noted, I was watching him, and he would say things like, "Good morning, Mr. Jones," and then he would mumble something almost like profanities under his breath. And I kept watching him, and he was a little too scary for me to walk up to him and ask him if he knew where this audition was being held. So, but finally I got my nerve up and I walked up to him and I said, do you know where they're auditioning for Dark of the Moon? I'm here to play Barbara Allen, and I really have to find this. I mean, this was a skyscraper, you know, it wasn't a little house or anything. It was a big building with a lot of offices. And he looked at me, and it was one of those, almost like a Twilight Zone moment, you know. I felt like everything stood still, and he looked at me in the eyeballs, and he said, go to room 511. They're always doing weird things there. So I just went to 511, and I met the receptionist of a publishing company that was called Hugo and Luigi. And her name was Joyce, and she was in this outer office that was, you know, kind of uglyish office with green metal filing cabinets, and Joyce had a very, you know, almost like a school teacher desk. And I said, are you auditioning for Dark of the Moon here? And she looked at me like, here's a girl, you know, with long hair. And she said, no, we're not doing that. I'm sorry. And I just broke down. I said, oh my God, I'm going to be late. And it's really important. I know this is a part that I'm supposed to do. And she said, well, wait a minute. And she looked at her building directory, and she found the Directors Guild of New York or something who were putting it on. And she said, okay, so go to this room. In the meantime, I'm all hysterical and very emotional and upset. And two guys came in who happened to be Hugo and Luigi. And they saw me, and they saw the guitar, and they said, Joyce, what does she want, an audition? And Joyce looked at them, you know, kind of shook her head. And they said, well, set her up for Thursday. So I didn't even know what this was. I didn't know what a publishing company was. I mean, I remembered my mom was a jazz singer, and she had sheet music, and it would just always at the bottom say published by so-and-so. So that's all I knew about publishing. And I went to the audition. It was a very successful audition. I knew that I had the part because they had me come back and read with different people. And after the audition, they didn't say I got the part, but I felt I had the part. And they said, she said, they've set you up for Thursday at 4 p.m. And I went, okay. And I didn't know what I was being set up for, but I agreed to come back, and I thought I'll just sing some songs, you know. So I was in the thrill of this moment of feeling like this is supposed to be happening. And I went back on that next Thursday, and I went into their inner chamber. Now, their office was gilt Louis XIV matching desks with chandeliers and carpet this thick. You know, I opened the double doors of their office, and I was in, you know, a palace. It was palatial, and I sat. They were on two desks facing each other like that, and they had me set up here. So I'm looking at Hugo and Luigi, and I started to sing. They said, so what songs do you know? I said, well, I write songs, you know, and so I sang some of my songs, and they were looking at each other like they didn't know. They knew it was weird, but they didn't know. And they said, look, come back next week. We just hired a man to run our production company because we're writing a Broadway musical. They had written songs for Elvis. They wrote Wise Men, you know, Fools Rush In. Wise men say only fools rush. Anyway, I still didn't know who Hugo and Luigi were. I wasn't totally impressed. All I knew is I was an actress. I didn't know anything about the music business or how you even get into such a thing. So I went back. I met Peter Szekeres, and I mean, it was love at first sight.
Wow.
We just, he heard me, and in the middle of a song, he jumped up from his office, went across the hall to Hugo and Luigi's office, and I heard him saying something like, "She signed this, you got to get it." And so he came back and he said, do another song. So I kept singing songs that I wrote, and like he put his head down. "You wrote that?" Yeah. And it was like the first time anybody, except maybe my mother, had ever said, "Wow, that's really nice," So anyway, he got me recording with, he had been recording several different groups. He had some psychedelic records that were in the bubbling under charts, and he actually exchanged, I didn't know this, but he exchanged my session for a group called the Marshmallows. And he brought me into the studio with a full out orchestra, and I had a vocal booth, and I sang Beautiful People, and another song that I wrote called Mama, Why Didn't My Mother Tell Me? And we recorded these two songs, and he basically did this without getting an okay from CBS at the time, and but it turned out so well that they didn't mind. No. So we recorded my first record. I was signed by the head of A&R, and there were people who really knew music, and it was the beginning of it was just at that time when the music business was changing in ways that the public never really knew about. And when they had me signed to CBS, and by the time the record came out, a new takeover had happened, and now there was a lawyer in charge of the record label, and he did not get me at all, did not get anything about me. And so they didn't really want to approve of a recording album. And Peter had in the contract an escape clause, which I don't think that lawyer was very appreciative of. And I got out of that contract and went to Buddha Records, and I put out my first album. And from there we went to Europe, where really things started to take off. I became like an industry buzz, there's a little bit of buzz. And from there, it's history. I had a hit record. I performed at Woodstock, and after Woodstock, it was, I went from being an unknown person to being a celebrity basically in one night.
Well, that's great. That's quite a story. That's very moving and very inspirational. Woodstock. So that's the thing apparently that got you started onto fame and fortune in this business.
Well, I had again. There was like an industry sort of buzz, and it was in Europe. I worked on a film score, and there was interest in me in Europe, and I also had done the Olympia Theater in Paris, which is that's pretty prestigious place. I was presented to the French audience by a singer called Gilbert Bécaud. And Gilbert Bécaud was kind of the Frank Sinatra of Europe. And Edith Piaf had presented him to the French public, and now he was presenting me to, the Olympia Theater was like the Carnegie Hall, it was really prestigious. And I had that. So I had things were going, but I wasn't known here at all. I had one record called Beautiful People, and again, the record label didn't really get that this could be possible money for them. So it came out, but they didn't service the record stores, so they had a few circulating, and Roscoe, who was a DJ, an underground DJ on WNEW in New York City, and he got a hold of a copy of Beautiful People and started playing it, and from there it was just played on underground radio here, and I guess now they would call it went viral, but then it was called a turntable hit because it was being played, but nobody knew he couldn't buy it because the guy, again, who took over CBS Records at the time did not get it at all. And then I was played on pirate radio. There was such a thing called pirate radio. Again, in Europe, radio was totally government controlled, and they had pirate radio stations out in the ocean, so that they were beyond the control of, the BBC or the Netherlands government. So I was on pirate radio stations and underground radio stations, and I mean, I don't know why Beautiful People would have been considered a revolutionary or anything, but it was a very strange time. And so that when I came back to do Woodstock, I wasn't known here, but there was this little industry buzz, And
so you were known in Netherlands, right? You weren't known here. Is that correct?
Not here. I have Beautiful People began to become a hit in Europe.
Right.
But here, again, it was only Roscoe and underground radio that played Beautiful. I would say when I got on that stage, maybe a small percent of that assembled 500,000 knew that song at all. They certainly didn't know me or my face or my name or anything. They might have heard that song because college radio stations might have been playing it and Roscoe is playing it, but that was about it. And so I was in this very unique position of being an unknown performer at Woodstock, taking the stage in front of all those people. And I wasn't a veteran performer. I had done a few showcases in England, and I did this Olympia Theater in Paris, which was a big deal. But, it was very surreal. When I grew up in New York, I had never been anywhere in my life. I had never traveled, and except to run away from home. But, I wasn't worldly wise or anything. And it didn't even feel real. I'd be singing in front of all these people, and I wasn't fluent at French or anything. I knew menu French. I knew how to order something in a restaurant or say a few very simple things because I had taken French in high school. But that doesn't really get you too far in Paris.
Well, that's really something. Now at Woodstock, apparently there was candles in the rain, lay down candles in the rain. You had I guess it was a group. Was it something Hawkins Singers that there were?
Yeah, the Edwin Hawkins Singers, but I hadn't written it when I was at Woodstock. I wrote it when I was leaving Woodstock. No, I didn't sing it at Woodstock. The only song I sang all new songs. I sang songs I had just written. In fact, there's one song called Birthday of the Sun. And that was I had just written it. And because it was raining, there's a line in it called Birthday of the Rain. So I just decided this is a good song to sing. I didn't even know what I was going to sing when I got on that stage. Imagine being that naive and unexperienced that I got on a stage in front of 500,000 people not knowing what I was going to do. So I sang Birthday of the Rain, and there are, these kids who come to my show now who'll say, "Oh, sing Birthday of the Rain." Well, I hadn't done that. I hadn't done that since Woodstock. So in fact, what we did is the other night, we recorded the songs I sang at Woodstock. And for the first time ever, I did the set that I actually did. And I didn't even know what I did. I didn't make the first movie. I didn't make the first recording. It was only, I think, the second version of Woodstock that I was on. And so here I was, singing Birthday of the Rain that I had just written. So here I was 52 years later, and we recorded the songs I did at Woodstock. And in fact, it is now available.
Wow.
You can actually get it on a download at Bandcamp. I have a Bandcamp. I'm independent, totally. I was always kind of a renegade, and I guess I still am. Independent label. It's bandcamp.com, and you can find me there.
Well, have you written mostly the songs you perform? You basically write all your lyrics, words, and perform them on most of your songs. And what songs now? I mean, how did that come about? The Candle in the Rain, Laid on Candle in the Rain. How did that come about? I mean, that turned out to be really something.
It did. Well, I was when I got to Woodstock, my mom. I was in the middle of writing a film score, and I was in the studio with, Mick Jagger was in the studio next door, and I mean, it was a big deal. Everything was there. I had never met a famous person before. I was, again, it was like an industry buzz, but I wasn't, I hadn't the experience. I didn't perform a lot out. It was just through Peter, who was my husband, producer, the one that Hugo and Luigi had hired. He became my producer for the rest of my life. He produced every record I ever did.
Really?
So when I arrived, it was midday or something, and I had to go to a different place, and it had changed locations, and we hit a lot of traffic. And I just, it was upstate New York. I thought, well, it must be, the weekend or something. And then I realized this traffic has something to do with what I'm about to, have to experience. And as we got closer and closer, we got to the right place, and I was supposed to meet at this motel. And when I got there, it was surrounded by media trucks, and I went in the front door, and I'm looking around, and there's Janis Joplin, in the middle of a group of reporters and with microphones, and she's slugging Southern Comfort, and this is all bigger than life. And Sly Stone walked by, and then I'm thinking, how do I get out of here? This is not where I should not be here. This is way, way above my head. I have to get out, and I'm looking at my mother, and I'm thinking, how am I going to? I can't do this. And so I'm thinking I'm leaving, and I hear somebody say, Melanie, we have to go to the helicopter. So we start running toward the helicopter, and my mother's there, and I have the guitar over my shoulder, and I get to the helicopter, and we're about to get in, and the guy who was escorting us said, "Who's she?" I said, "Oh, it's my mom." And he said, "Mom? No, Mom. Sorry, Mom. Bye, Mom. Only musicians or managers, And I didn't even have the savvy to say, "Oh yeah, she's my roadie." I didn't know. So I said goodbye to my mother, and I got into the helicopter. As we're descending the field, I see this what looked like a crop of some kind. And I asked the pilot, what is that? And he said, that's people. I said, no, I mean that colored stuff down there. And he says, people. And I said, people? We're miles from the site. And he said, yeah, and there's the stage. And he pointed to, you know, something the size of a football field. And I'm thinking, I can't do this. How can I do this? I was all by myself with a guitar, no group, no roadie, no friend, nothing, no mom. And I was led when we landed. I heard Richie Havens singing, and he was in his, like, you know, obvious 50th minute of freedom. And I was led to a little tent with a dirt floor and a box. And I assumed that I would be the next person on, because that's why I had to go in a helicopter, right? So I'm like about to, you know, lose it. I can't even tell you, the terror was mounting. And they said, you're on next. And then they said, never mind. So then I wasn't on next. And I waited all day in that tent, the whole day. Every once in a while, someone would come on and say, you're on next. And then it would be never mind. Or I would hear someone else playing, and I knew it wasn't me. So it was, you know, and this is how it went. And as the day progressed, I developed this deep bronchial cough. It just sounded like demons coming. I've never, and from then on, I always had this cough before I went on. It was a very deep, nervous cough. And I waited, and then it started to rain. And I remembered the announcer making some kind of inspirational speech. And he said that the Hog Farm Collective, which was, I think, Wavy Gravy, had this a collective. It wasn't called a commune, it was a collective. And they're passing out thousands of candles, and people need to light the candles and keep the rain or whatever away. And I don't know, some inspirational thing that I must have absorbed. Not that I wrote it down or anything, but I must have absorbed it. And I'm thinking, it's raining. Thank you, God. My prayers are answered. Everybody will go home, and I won't have to do this. I mean, can you imagine something as pivotal as Woodstock? And I'm praying that, you know, I won't have to go on. But, and I'm in this reverie of thinking, well, everybody's going to go now. It's raining. You know, they're going to go, right? Wouldn't you go? I mean, it's raining and muddy, and why would they say? So I'm in this reverie of thinking, they're going to cancel it. It's going to be over, and I won't have to do it. I'll go back to England, and life will go on just as it was. But in the middle of all of that, someone said, you're on next. Only this time, it was real. So I got out of my tent, and I walked and walked, and I walked to the stage, and it was like this wooden plank. And I swear it felt like my certain doom was going to happen. I didn't have that warm, cuddly feeling that a lot of people who attended. I think if you really want to know about Woodstock, ask the people who were in the audience. I mean, as far as a performer, I was so scared all day long. The only cuddly moment I had was, I told you I had this deep cough. So I guess Joan Baez, who was in the upper echelon tent, I didn't even know it existed, but I knew there was something over there, you know, and it was big, and that must be where the amenities were. And she heard me coughing, and I, at one point during the day, some beatific little hippie girl came to my lap and said, excuse me, Joan Baez heard you coughing and thought you might like this. And she handed me a pot of tea with lemon and honey. And I was like, Joan Baez? she was my idol, you know.
Really?
And here she was. She heard me suffering and sent over this pot of tea. That was my cuddly moment at Woodstock. And then the next magic, amazing moment was when I connected on that stage with the 500,000 people in front of me. And I always say that the phenomenon of me at Woodstock is that I walked on that stage, an unknown person, and literally walked off the stage a celebrity. And that is what happened. And I think that's why, you know, people so associate me with Woodstock.
That is exciting. That's so exciting and so inspirational, Melanie. It really is. I appreciate you sharing that with me. I really do. I find it fascinating. I really do. That's really some turning your scars into stars. Just when you're terrified, it turns around that you are able to come through it and from an unknown become a big top star and celebrity. That's something. That's really something.
It was something. The next day I was asked to be on panel discussions with anthropologists, you know, discussing the significance of it. But for me, this was an epiphany because I had, you know, a spiritual experience. Really,
that's something you and the world will never forget. That's what a story that is. I really appreciate that. Anyway, you have had so many interesting moments in your career. What a career you've had. Apparently, there's a favorite song. I mean, I love your songs. When I listen to your songs, you have so much passion. There's a sweetness. There's a passion. There's an enthusiasm, and it's entertaining. It's relaxing. It's just, how can you not like it? It's just unforgettable. But there are certain now. There's a favorite song of mine, although like I said, I like many of them. That one, the brand new key now. Tell me about that song. How did you create that song? What were the events that led up to you creating it, and exactly how did that work out?
Well, the story behind it is very has nothing to do with the subject. Okay, I was launched into a stellar career all of a sudden, you know. So I always say, you know, some people pay dues, and then they become famous. Well, my career started a different way. I started out famous, and then I started to pay dues. The whole lifestyle of traveling and being basically a moving target, you know, because just people like to do that, you know. I think they think things, you know. There's a lot of jealousy and backstabbing and things that go on that people aren't aware of in public. But I was having a very hard time because I was very young and inexperienced. I was being attacked in a cruel kind of way. You know, the underground press that I thought were my people, you know, these are my people, the Rolling Stone. But it turned out that they attacked me and made me look foolish, and would, you know, how the media can slant things and make someone look entirely different than who they are. But so I was having a hard time, and emotionally and physically. I was a vegetarian, and I wasn't doing well physically. I kept getting sick. I got sick a lot. Well, it's my voice. I was supposed to do Carnegie Hall, and I lost my voice. So I went to the local health food store, and the guy there said, you know, you should go visit Dr. Bernard Jensen. He is the father of iridology in America. Now, iridology is the study of the little dots in your iris, and I knew nothing about it, and probably millions of people still don't know anything about it. But I was into all kinds of alternative health and healing and stuff. So I went to see Dr. Bernard Jensen, and he put me on a fast. And he said, I told him I'm a vegetarian, but I keep getting sick. And I said, I don't know what I should be doing. I thought this was a healthy thing to do. And so little by little, I just stopped eating and was on a 27-day fast on nothing but water, nothing but distilled water, distilled. So you didn't get any extra minerals or anything. So I was fasting, and I didn't want to stop fasting because I guess, the phenomenon of that is that you're basically kind of leaving your body. And it is an amazing experience. And I wanted to keep going, but Dr. Jensen said, I think maybe it's time to break the fast. And it was the 27th day. And I thought, okay, so we broke the fast on a tablespoon of juice. And then the next day, a little bit of partially cooked grated carrot and zucchini. And little by little, I had food introduced into my system again. And he had a meeting with me, and he said, now, Melanie, the perfect diet is going to occur to you. And he suggested, he was a vegetarian himself, but because of blood types and things like that, he thought because I was an O blood type, that I should be eating some, what he called animal substance. So I was horrified, oh no, I knew everything terrible about eating meat and why I shouldn't. And, I would be one of the guests at the Thanksgiving dinner and say, I don't eat carcass, And so, I was a militant vegetarian. And when he said I need to eat meat at least once a week, I was horrified, but I went home and, kept breaking the fast very gradually, and fruit and vegetable. And I was on my way to a flea market. I was very fond, I still am. I love old junk, I love other people's junk and things that are old, and like especially industrial, like hardware, old hardware. I love, like I have an old GE fan. I think it was like the plug is about that big, and the wire was wrapped in like a maroon and yellow. It looked like a jump rope kind of, and I loved just old things and old hardware and old tools and things like garden tools. And I would collect hammers, different kinds of hammers, from old workshops with beautiful patina of wood because they had been used. I was fascinated with old things. And so I would go to the flea market. So that I went to the Englishtown Flea Market, which was in Englishtown, New Jersey. And I was on my way home and I smelled something. And I thought, wow, that smells so good. And we pulled in to, you won't believe it, it was a McDonald's. And the Golden Arches, And I'm thinking, well, Dr. Jensen said my perfect diet was going to occur to me. And he said I should eat meat. So I went in and I got the whole works, the hamburger and the fries and the fiberglass milkshake. And I ate the whole thing. I mean, imagine after being on a fast for 27 days, putting that kind of stuff into your system. But I felt terrific. And I felt like, oh my God, I remembered roller skating when I was little. Maybe it was the smell of the rancid grease or something, but whatever it was, it just brought back these images of roller skating and riding my bike, and my dad holding the back of the bike with the training wheels, and he'd raise the training wheels little by little, and he would be holding the bike, and I say, you're holding, right? You're holding the bike, you're holding the bike. And I'd hear his voice getting further and further away. And as soon as I realized he wasn't holding, I would fall down, and I roller skated down Suicide Hill, which was like the only hill in Astoria, Queens. And I roller skated and broke my front tooth.
You did.
And it was my permanent tooth. And my mom was so proud of my teeth. And I knew that I was going to get in such trouble for breaking my tooth. But all of these memories came back to me. And the song just popped into my head. I went home. I started singing it at the edge of my bed. And Peter, my husband, producer, said, "What's that?" I said, "Oh, just some silly song. I don't know. It just kind of flew into my head coming home from the flea market." He said, "Well, let's play that part again." And I started playing, and he had that look in his eye like, "Melanie, that's a hit." And I went, "Oh, no." You know, I'm already in trouble with the Rolling Stone. If that's a hit, I'm doomed to be cute for the rest of my life. And sure enough, we got to the studio, and he said, "We're going to speed it up a little bit." And because I had written it, I think, a little more of a blues. I mean, it really is a blues song. You know, the structure and
right.
of it is, it's a blues song. But the way we recorded it was very pop, and it had some quirky sounds in it. We had Roger Kellaway, who had just written All in the Family theme with Carol O'Connor, and he played something that he was experimenting with something called prepared piano, where you put stuff in the strings of the piano, and it gives it it plays certain harmonics. So I was kind of avant-garde, and so the record has the most unique sound, but I kind of became a reactionary to the record, because after it was released, that's all anybody wanted to hear. Was, you know, "Oh, do that one about the roller skates," you know. And I was like, oh, you know, I wanted to be perceived as a songwriter with a little bit of relevance, a social commentary meaning, you know, behind their songs. And here I was known more for that song than anything. But after all these years, I really appreciate. I'm so grateful it was me who wrote that song.
When I heard that song, you could never get that out of your. I mean, so many years. You can't forget it. The song is so catchy. It's so entertaining. The way you did it, the words, the meaning, over and over again. What can I say? It's a spark of genius. And you sold 3 million copies on that.
Oh, gosh.
And I also heard that the song there was something about it that the radio stations for some reason banned that song.
That's right.
Tell me about that.
That's right. Well, because there was everybody was reading things into lyrics that, you know, play this record backwards and it says Paul is dead, you know, and different people would read meaning into the different lyrics. And what they came up with Brand New Key was that it was sexual innuendo, and it had a lot to do with there was a phenomenon, weird thing, wife swapping, and they would leave a key on a bureau, and then some other guy would take the key, and, you know, it was just like in the suburbs where they were bored or something, and they had this wife swapping thing, so they thought it was reference to that. Other people said, no, it's a key, like a kilo of drugs, so it's a drug song, and I mean, it was none of those. It was just me having these memories of roller skating, and you know, maybe in my deepest self, subconsciously, there were sexual innuendos, but I never deliberately went out to do that, you know. So anyway, it was banned on radio stations, but despite that, it was played everywhere.
Well, when people can't get things, sometimes they even want it even more. So it actually probably worked to your benefit that more people wanted it and bought it, even though it was right. But that was very interesting. You have written quite a few other songs that were very entertaining. Where have they gone with my?
What have they done to my song?
What have they done to my song, Mom? That was one. You did the nickel song. That's so cute. It really is.
Yeah.
It's just so sweet and so cute.
Yes,
about a nickel. You're trying to make something more than a nickel. You want to get more than So the way it was done, it's the way you just have this, it's this girlishness, this enthusiasm, this sweetness, this passion, this feeling. It's so beautiful and entertaining. You can hear it over and over again.
Well,
no, it's true. It is really true.
And all these years later, it's amazing how the songs are more powerful now because they've lived all these years, and people will come up and say, oh my God, I remember me and my mom, we never got along, but when that song came out, we would sing it together, or, you know, it lived with people. And I'm really so grateful for all the stories that people have to tell me about the connection that they made with me through my music and how meaningful it was to their life. That's like the most important thing, you know, that the songs are so important.
What you're doing is you're touching the minds, bodies, hearts, and souls of everybody that you meet and everything. And if they don't like it, there's something wrong with them. That's for sure. That's really no.
Well, I wish I could have had that philosophy when I was younger, because I was so hard on myself, and I just thought I must not be very good, you know, for the some of the comments are so cruel.
Well, I noticed that you were on quite a few television shows also. Apparently, Mike, you were on Mike Douglas' show. You could tell me about Mike Douglas.
Yeah, he was very, very sweet. I really liked Mike Douglas, and Johnny Carson was very, very.
I remember on Johnny Carson. Apparently, Johnny Carson was taken back with you. He said that he thought you were charming and talented, but you apparently were a little kind of nervous on that show, and he was trying to calm you down and make you more relaxed. And you said that you prefer having. He says it's like a security blanket to have a guitar on you. You said you like having a guitar, and you're upset because your agent wanted you to sing without a guitar, and he said wear a blue dress. And so Johnny Carson said, well, that reminds me, it sounds like my agent that wouldn't let me, he would not allow me to use my desk, and he also mentioned the blue dress. So he was trying to calm you down on that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
No, he was very kind because, you know, he did kind of sometimes make jokes at the expense of like a beatific kind of girl thing, you know, like he would sometimes make jokes at the expense of a bimbo, you know, and right. I was so afraid that he was gonna, you know, because I was always one of those people. In fact, I never got off-color jokes, you know. I was just one of those people that, you know, kids would be telling some kind of dirty joke, and I'd be sitting there, huh? You know, and so I was so afraid I'd miss something and be the brunt of a joke. But he was very, very kind to me.
Yeah, he said you were terrified. You're not accustomed to doing this, you know, appearing like this on a show. And he said, I want you to be comfortable. I just want you to be very relaxed and comfortable. That was nice of me. That was nice. He was really trying to make you feel much more relaxed and comfortable. So it worked out. There was you were on Ed Sullivan also, and Ed Sullivan, he likened you to Elvis Presley.
I know.
He said when Elvis made his debut on the show, you know, they had reaction, the women were screaming and everything. But he had you on. He says, I haven't seen a group of people so loyal to an artist as much as you, and thought it was compared, the reactions that people had to you to Elvis's performance, even though
that was amazing.
Even though there wasn't screaming, it's reactions. It's because of your talent, the talent that you have. He thoroughly recognized that he truly, and he loved it, and so did the audience.
Yeah, he was amazing. Yeah, I was on the Ed Sullivan Show twice, so
that's really
it was really great. And
you were on Dick Clark too. You were on American Bandstand.
Dick Clark several times. Yeah.
Tell me some of the songs that you did on these. Yeah.
What did I do on Dick Clark's show? I forgot.
There was a
Maybe
Cyclone.
It was Brand New Key.
Was that Cyclone? Okay, you did Cyclone on one of them.
Oh yeah, that was later on, when I was on Atlantic Records for a little bit. But
so you done. You also appeared besides all these other shows, you also appeared with sing the song "Silver Threads and Golden Needles" with Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash, that was amazing.
Yeah.
That was truly that was an adventure. We were, again, I was a New Yorker, and we had heard things about the South, and now, oddly enough, I'm living in the South now, but then I was like, I heard, you have to be careful because the police will arrest you if you have long hair or, whatever. And so we were in Nashville, and I was supposed to do the Johnny Cash show. I think I met Johnny Cash through the Everly Brothers, who had done a summer replacement show. I think I had done the Everly Brothers first. I could be wrong. I never get the order of things right. But John, it was a whole different world, with women with bouffant hairdos and frills and doing country music. And there I was. But he was very adventurous, obviously he did an album with Bob Dylan, so he really, we hit it off really great, me and Johnny Cash.
That's great. Did you ever meet Elvis at all?
No, never met Elvis.
Never got a chance to, yeah, he was my own inspiration. I never got a chance to meet him either, but that's how it goes. That's how it goes. Anyway, I did work with a producer, though, who knew Elvis well. He wrote the '68 Comeback, the comedy of his partner Alan Bly, for the '68, an NBC special, where Elvis is surrounded by his cronies, DJ Fontana on drums and Scotty Moore, the lead guitar. They were talking about the early days when Elvis first started. So he wrote that, and that's really something. So
wow.
That was, he said, we know what you can do. Someone said you're going to get gonged. I said, you're wrong, but I win, and I won the Gong Show. And then I had television specials. Oh, yeah, that was really something. Like I say, concerts were sold out, so I never got a chance to meet them, but I had, I had a special whole show dedicated to me. Took over the shows, put up on the show, just like the Winning Touch. That was really something. Johnny Blaze Day. And then, Elvis had his Hawaii special doing Jailhouse Rock, going out in the audience and taking over the whole show. He had his Hawaii special 4 years before he died, and I had my Hawaii special, a one-time thing, thrill. Felt like Elvis and the Beatles, hugging, kissing, screaming, lips in the face, cheering and applauding. That's really fun. You want to see those shows, you can see them on Johnny Blaze.
Okay, I'll check that out.
But anyway, so Chris Beard, when the staff was rude to me before I did the Hawaii special, I said, if you don't like what I'm doing, I'm leaving. He called me back on my phone and he said, Johnny, you can do Teddy Bear, you can do whatever you want. That's really something. So to be able to have him believe in me so much to do that. So I imagine I was Elvis, and it was like Elvis. And the Beatles. Anyway, getting back to you now. These shows are really fabulous. I know you did some other shows. You've written a lot of hits. How many hits would you say? You've had so many top hits.
Well, there were hits in different places. Like Ruby Tuesday was a phenomenal hit in Europe. It was, in fact, if you say Melanie, most people will say, "Oh, Ruby Tuesday,"
Stones.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
but I mean, it became such a big hit that it almost obscured the fact that the Stones wrote it and recorded it first, because it was such a big hit. And so, in fact, I was singing it in, as I said, the heavy underground press were not thrilled with me. Somehow the positioning of where I was, what record label I was on, etc., just didn't do well for underground heavy duty. The cool people, real cool people, just didn't really like me. So here I was, with a hit, Ruby Tuesday. I'm in Cleveland, and the underground music reviewer was there, and they wrote a scathing, horrible review. I mean, the show was so great, and the audience it was like amazing. It was like one of the best shows ever. And the review, I don't know, who this person, where they were in their head, but they said, oh, and her songs are so stupid, and her lyrics are so inane and ridiculous, like Ruby Tuesday. I was vindicated,
Wow.
Here I am. I sang a Rolling Stones song and it got panned.
Wow.
But it was only because it was Melanie who was singing it, not the Rolling Stones. So,
I see.
yeah.
You also did Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? That was the
Cherelle.
Cherelles did that, right?
Yeah.
Did that too.
Yeah.
Who were your inspirations now as far as entertainment?
Wow.
I mean, you have any sort of...
I had my mom was a jazz singer, and so I grew up with listening to Billie Holiday, Nina Simone. In fact, Nina Simone recorded one of my songs. It was the most amazing thing. I always wanted to meet her, and I never did. But Nina Simone recorded "Look What They've Done to My Song."
Really?
And yeah, and Peggy Lee. My mom liked Peggy Lee, and I grew up with that kind of music. But she was more. She was much more influenced by Black female vocalists mostly, and then my uncle, who we lived in the same house as me, he was a union organizing Woody Guthrie person, so he knew all the labor songs and songs of protest, and so I grew up with those kinds of music. And also my grandmother was from Italy, and she would sing in Italian all the time, different Italian pop songs. And so I had a really eclectic musical mix of styles. And I think that when I look back and listen to my older albums, it's so apparent that I was drawing from all these different styles. And then I discovered on my own Brenda Lee. And I just thought she was the best. I just loved her voice, and I wanted to be Brenda Lee. And then it was Joan Baez, and of course she has this beautiful silky voice, and I always had a kind of gravelly voice, and so I couldn't quite. You go out to imitate people that you admire, and I guess style is the kind of thing that you go out to imitate someone you admire, and you get it wrong, and it becomes your style. So,
well, imitation is the highest form of flattery, that's for sure. So, if you're trying to be, of course, I mean, it helps if you want to, it gets to try to give you confidence to imagine you're someone else. However, when it comes down to it, just basically, if you're yourself, that's good enough.
Yeah,
that helps give you confidence, and I think that's a plus. You perform at other. You've done music festivals. I know you've also done the Metropolitan Opera, and you also did. There was somewhere else. I'm trying to think.
Well, I did the Met and the Sydney Opera House.
Right? Yeah, Sydney Opera House.
I was the first pop artist to ever do the Met.
Really?
And in fact, we have just released the Met as a 2-disc recording of my show when I did the Met in, I don't know, 74 or something like that, 1974. And it was just released just recently. So you can find that on my website. And it's been put out by a company called Article 27 Music. Now, Article 27 is the Declaration of Human Rights. Oh. Article 27 has to do with ownership of your artistic creations, and how artists should always be compensated for their artistic creations. And over the years, so however it worked, my compensation has been directed toward other people.
Oh.
So, so Article 27 is active in securing my artistic legacy for my family, because right now I am, I basically don't get paid for anything I've ever created.
Well, you should. You should be paid.
Of course. And so that's why if you buy the Met, you'll be helping to support that, the Article 27, and helping me get my rights back.
I see. Also, you did Carnegie Hall. Also, you did that too.
Yes, I did Carnegie Hall, and the Isle of Wight Festival, and Glastonbury Music Festival, and all the festivals. I became like the festival queen.
That's great.
After Woodstock, it was. In fact, I was going to do a concert in New Jersey, and it was at one of those outdoor garden art centers, and the governor of New Jersey had just outlawed festivals.
Oh.
And so, but I was booked as a solo artist at this, it was called the Garden State Art Center. I think now it's named after a bank or something, but it was the Garden State Art Center. And the night before the show, the governor outlawed my show. Why? And because he had outlawed festivals in the state of New Jersey.
Really?
And he said, I constituted a festival just because it was me. So they wouldn't let me perform in the art center.
That's not very nice. No. I think isn't that something where you decided to do it anyway? And I think you got on a truck, some type of a Sophie truck.
Oh,
it was
that's pretty. It is kind of mythicized over the years, but there was a festival that was supposed to go on. It was called Powder Ridge, and it was in Connecticut. And I went. I heard it was going to be called off, and I thought that's not possible. There were 40,000 people already gathered, and I thought they can't possibly call it off. So we all the performers met at the ski lodge of the festival site, and we were told in no uncertain terms that anyone who went on that field was going to be arrested.
Really?
So everyone, went home except me. I don't know why it wasn't like I was, rebellious. Maybe I was, inside rebellious. And I just decided, no, I'm going. And so the 1010 Wins news team smuggled me in. They put my guitar in the trunk of the car, and they went in as a news team. And I got in, and there was a bunch of people who hooked my guitar up to a Mr. Softy ice cream truck generator.
Oh.
And so I had sound, and I started to sing, and it was like I was Santa Claus, it was like, because everybody was really bummed out that there wasn't going to be a show, but they were all there. So I was the only performer who did it. And then they said, oh, I think the police are coming. And they got me back in the car, and I got out just in time. So I didn't get arrested, but I definitely risked that. I don't know what was in my head, but I thought, I'm doing it,
That's determination. That took courage and determination, because you could have been arrested. That's right.
It took something. I probably inexperience of having been arrested, because that was not a good time to mess with. There was that divide between people in uniform and the hippies, so it was I just aligned myself. I always have aligned myself with the people. I've never been a political person. People have asked me, do you consider yourself an activist? I said, no, I'm a humanist. No, I'm not a political person.
I
don't trust
see you.
politics.
I see you as a talented, entertainer and performer that spreads love and peace. That's how I.
That's it. You know, in fact, when they sometimes would say, "Oh, you're the anti-war singer," especially in Europe or Russia, when I performed over there, you're the anti-war. I said, "No, I was a pro-peace singer. That's different. There's a different stance between somebody who is anti and pro."
Right.
So I was more of that was my stance. And again, not because if you rid yourself, then you're gonna get this wall, and nothing good ever happens that way. So
that's great. You also wrote, I guess, for Beauty and the Beast. Now, apparently, you wrote the lyrics.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I did. I had I won an Emmy for that. I wrote it was a theme for the TV show Beauty and the Beast, and I was asked if I would do the lyrics, and so I worked on it. I heard the melody. I instantly the way I work is very inspirational. I heard the music, it inspired me, and I came up with this line the first time: "I loved forever." And I thought, that's so perfect, because it was a very strange romance between a lawyer, and this guy who lived in the subway, and I was just so inspired when I heard the melody that I wrote it, and I wrote it down on a legal pad, and I turned it in the next day, which was my fatal mistake, because I turned it in. They said, oh no, that needs more of her point of view, and it needs more of his point of view, and everybody had something to say, and all the actors, Ron Perlman was brought in to find out what he thought was wrong with the. Anyway, I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and it was an eternity and a whole legal pad full of lyrics, and that I knew that the first lyrics I wrote were just from my heart, and but it was before computers, so there was no way of them really checking, but after countless tries and taking everybody's information and trying to make sense out of it lyrically, I came up with the idea that I'm going to turn in my very first attempt, because I believed that was the one. It just had something that was almost magical, and I turned in that lyric, and the next day I got a call from the producer, and he said, "Melanie, that's it. You see, all that hard work paid off."
Wow.
So yes, I guess it did. But the moral of that is, don't ever turn anything in fast. I think
Right.
They want you to, they want to know you suffered over it a little bit. And the moral is I won an Emmy for that.
That's great. Now there was another thing. There was something you wrote. It's a love story for your husband Peter.
Yeah, it was after Peter passed away. We were never apart. We were always together.
You had a wonderful husband. It sounds like you had a very loving, nurturing husband that produced your music, your albums, and he really cared about you, and it was true love.
He stood by me the whole time, and
great.
We have 3 children, and they're all in music, and I'm really blessed in that way, that I have this family that keeps me together.
Wow.
My son is a virtuoso guitarist and a musical director and producer, engineer. I mean, he does everything. And again, he's the one who did this the recording of the set I did at Woodstock, and we're working on new songs together. And I just wrote a song with Keb Mo, and he always loved Brand New Key. He told me that was like an eye-opening song. And the odd thing is, it is a blues song, so we're going to work on a blues version of Brand New Key. It's been 50 years since the release of Brand New Key. It was released on my own label, Neighborhood Records. Peter and I opened Neighborhood Records when the contract was over for Buddha Records. And little did I know, I made enemies in high places, because that wasn't what they wanted. They did not want artists running their own music. You know, they wanted the control. So before me opening a label, the only artists who ever started their own label were the Beatles. But in America, I was the only independent artist who opened a mainstream record label.
You want to take control back from them and do your own. It's on Neighborhood Records. That's what yeah.
Yep, it was Neighborhood Records.
Right. So this love that you think for your husband, what was it exactly? This love story that you...
Well, it was right after he passed away. One of my fans was a theater director, and he said, Melanie, I always wanted to do a musical with your lyrics and your music. And he said, when I heard that Peter passed away, he said it was like a part of my life was gone. And I'm reaching out to you because I want to do a musical based on your relationship and life with Peter. And it was really therapy for me, because I was at that point, you know, people are offering me antidepressants and, you know, things to make you be able to exist. And I'm so grateful that I didn't go that route. You know, I went and I started creating, and I started creating this musical and doing the monologues in between scenes that were acted by two actors, the girl who played young Melanie and the guy who played Peter. And they would act out different scenes of our relationship and our life, our strange, crazy life. And
so that's a catharsis.
It was called Melanie and the Record Man.
Oh, great! That's a good feeling to be able to. I mean, it's sad about losing your husband, but to be able to do a tribute to your love story, with your husband, how you met, and what you went through in a musical, that is really something. That must make you feel good. It gives you a real purpose, and it makes you feel like
it got me through. It got me
able to get you through to survive. That's correct. That's important. So you've had so many hits, and you write your own songs. How many hits would you say that you have written, and tell me also about the awards that you won too? Yeah.
Well, I haven't really won a lot of awards. Again, I wasn't. I'm not a schmoozer, really. You know, I after a show or on the road, I just wanted to go home. You know, I'm very much a homebody, and I never, you know, hung out and, you know, in those circles. So, you know, it's kind of amazing that I didn't have more statistics. I mean, I have one Emmy in all the music that I've ever created with, you know, Look What They've Done to My Song Ma and Peace Will Come and Nickel's Song and all of the songs that I wrote and recorded of other people, even having hits with Tambourine Man by Bob Dylan, and I sang a Randy Newman song, and it was played forever. And with all the music I created, I don't have any major awards, but it's funny about statistics. People are very, very impressed. You know, if you say Grammy Award winning, you know, and it means something much more. It must be good, you know. I'm one of those people you have to discover.
I see. So what would you say your happiest memories are as an entertainer and performer and singer and songwriter?
Oh wow! I think one of the thing that just popped into my head was I was the first person who sang at the General Assembly at the United Nations, and I sang "Peace Will Come" in front of the whole General Assembly, and I got a standing ovation, which was I was singing under the Angel of Peace, and I went on the road for UNICEF to raise money for UNICEF, and much to the horror of my agents, because they had booked $1 million tour, and I gave it up, but I always came about it thinking I want to do something for people. I wanted to be in the Peace Corps. I was turned down, but or maybe I was going to be a social worker, because I never really decided I was going to have a career in music. It was something that happened, circumstances. Met Peter. He was a producer. He produced the hit.
That's what I was going to ask you. If you didn't do entertainment, what do you think? What do you think you would have done?
I don't know. I really I loved expressing myself in different art. I draw and paint, and I studied pottery. Sculpting and pottery.
Oh, really?
And I thought maybe I'll be a potter. And again, I wanted to be in the Peace Corps, or a social worker, or an archaeologist, or an anthropologist. I was always fascinated with the effects of certain times in history, and how that affected society and how people behaved. And an anthropologist was one of the things I thought about. But again, I was so not, I did not want to go to college. And so obviously those things aren't going to happen. You're not going to be an archaeologist.
So things turned out differently than what you might have done.
But now that I've lived this many years, I see that I have become somebody who is of service to people. It's a different kind of service, I was never, a glamorous celebrity, but I feel like I had an effect on people that's much more important.
So you truly love what you're doing. I can feel it and everything.
Yeah, if I didn't have to get from one place to another, it's all that stuff in between that's terrible. But just actually the moments on stage are truly the magic moments of my life. That's
great. That really is. Do something that you love, because a lot of times people do things that they're forced to do and they hate. So do you have any now? To be able to be a survivor and be a success in this business, it's not easy. As you know, there's a lot of disappointment and rejection. So how were you able to overcome this? And also, what kind of advice would you give people who want to be an aspiring singer, songwriter? It's not so easy to be a success.
I don't know, because I think as far as being a success, don't do it for that. Do it because you want to express something that is uniquely your own. Because if you don't have anything of your own, you will never be your own person. You'll always be beholding to a fad or a trend or what a big deal person tells you to do. So you have to, I wouldn't do it if I didn't want to be famous. There are people who are right now are famous for being famous. You don't even know what they do. I don't know, what is a Kardashian? What are these people, who want to be famous just for being well known? I can't imagine anything more silly.
So you're doing something from your heart and passion. You're not thinking so much of the, I mean, sure, everybody wants to make money and financial, but you're doing something you truly love from your heart.
Yeah, I think that's the advice. You know, if you're not having fun and you're not doing something you really love, don't do it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That really does make a lot of sense. How do you go about being creative, and how does one go about making a hit song? I think it's just a talent that you just have to, either you have or you don't. Is there any techniques or any secrets that you have that you can share?
You know, I just wrote the songs, and Peter would go in the studio and have an idea of what a hit record would sound like at a particular moment. At this point, the music mostly on mainstream formats are very lacking in substance. You know, there's very little melody, and I'm all about melody and lyrics, and so I don't know. I mean, I don't go about creating for the sake of, you know, having a hit record. That's for sure.
What kind of music do you prefer? Is it country, folk, jazz, rock?
Well, again, because of my upbringing of such an eclectic mix of musical styles, I think I draw from all different kinds of music. And then when I was in my teens, I found Kurt Weill, who was a writer, and he married Lotte Lenya, and I became fascinated with that style of music. It was he wrote a musical called Three Penny Opera, and you know that's where Mac the Knife came from.
Really?
And Bobby Darin, I think, had a big hit with it, but there's a kind of the rhythms, and there was something dark, and yet it had a lot of pathos in it, like the song Pyru Jenny, who you know, she was a cleaning woman in a hotel, and she fantasized, you know, that she was going to lead a revolution almost, you know, that I've always loved Kurt Weill music, and the Kurt Weill Bertolt Brecht plays, and Lotte Lenya, she was the chanteuse kind of a singer. I always loved Edith Piaf. Yeah, I mean, I don't go out to have a hit record, and I don't go out to have a beautiful. I mean, my voice is very different from what it was when I was 20, but you know, I've heard some very cruel things about when you get older. You know, I was in the festival Glastonbury, and I did one of the reunions about 10 years ago, and I think you two were on stage, and I did that festival, and then I went to I called and said I'd like to do it again, and I got this horrible message back that they've decided that they would rather people remember me for what I was. Isn't that horrible? I mean,
that makes it sound like they only like you for what you did. What about now? That was
right. So, but you know, when I have right now something that I never had when I was 20, you know, I know what it is to communicate with people, and when you're being understood and you're resonating with people, that's the most important thing. It's not a matter of how pretty it is. It's a matter of how it falls, what kind of emotional effect it has. And so what I do now is something I could never have done when I was 20. I wanted to. I always wanted to be the older woman, really. And now I'm it.
You've come a long way, Melanie. You really have. You have a lot to be proud of. It sounds like you've traveled the world, all over. Yeah. You've met some interesting, I don't know, the different places you've been traveled, and the different celebrities. You've met quite a few celebrities, it sounds like.
Yeah, John Lennon and Elton John and different people. Again, I was never a person who hung out, you know, and so when the show was over, I'd be very happy to go home. I never went to the parties and hung out much.
So you did your own thing. You did what was important to you, what had the most meaning for you. Remember, you come first. You're number one. So, and you can't, like Ricky Nelson said in the Garden Party, if you can't please everybody, please yourself. That's true.
Right.
So you're not going to please everybody. It's impossible. Ask you, if you had to do it over again, do you have any regrets? Would you do anything differently if you were going to start over again in your career?
I don't know if I would have done anything differently, but I wish I had known that I was doing things that flew in the face of a status quo. You know, I really didn't know. I might have been more diplomatic or careful with what I was doing, and maybe I would have communicated more with the people that I made enemies with in the music industry. I made enemies in high places, let's just put it that way.
Well, but you survived. And,
yeah, I did.
How you were able to come, I mean, even if you were nervous, somehow you were able to overcome it. And would you ever forget any words or are there any times that you performed where something happened that maybe it didn't quite go smoothly like you had planned?
Yeah, when the wall came down in Russia, and it was, you know, the beginning of, I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but I did the Olympic Stadium in Moscow, and it was just at that time when the young Russian audience had embraced new wave punk kind of music, and I was, you know, I didn't ever think about what's in and what's out or anything, but I was brought over to Russia by Stas Naumann, who was a very, you know, influential Russian band. He had a big band there, and they introduced me, and I went on stage. There were thousands and thousands of kids, and, you know, they were, you know, all changing their name from Ludmilla to Lucy. You know, they wanted to be more Western and hip and with it and everything. And there I was, still evoking organic music that flowed. Anyway, I was not going over very well, and I was like one of the first times where I could feel that I could bomb. You know, I'd never felt that way before. I never ever felt that terrified that I'm not, you know, getting it through to these people. And what happened was the band, Stas Naumann, came out on the stage, and we started doing, all we are saying is give peace a chance. I got down on my knees on that stage, and I was, all we are saying, and everybody started singing it. Give peace a chance, and that saved me. That was one of the most.
You were able to you improvised, it sounds like, and you just started doing what you felt that you wanted to do and what you needed.
I had to do something.
I see. And so you saved yourself from a disaster, it sounds like.
I saved myself from a disaster, and Stas Naumann really helped me. They came out and, you know.
Out of all you performed for many years, do you have any what would you say your happiest memory and also your worst?
I think I've covered it. Really.
I think that last one was
the happiest, and well, the last one was the worst, and
that was
I really felt. I mean,
okay.
To have maybe 10,000 people all at once, kind of getting rowdy,
right.
all at once. It was. What do I do? And at that moment, I just threw myself on the floor of the stage and started pounding and singing a cappella. Oh, we are saying is give peace a chance, and then Doc Nauman came out, and
that's great. That's really something, Millie. Yeah,
that was almost the worst. No.
Wow. Well, you came out of it and you survived it. You're a trooper. You really survived. Anyway, do you have any? You have any present projects right now that are happening?
Projects, yes, lots and lots of things. Again, we have. Please visit Bandcamp, and I am on there with my set I did at Woodstock, the songs I sang at Woodstock, and it's the audio of the show that we did just a few days ago. And we are working on an album of new songs, and I am working on an anniversary. It's the 50th anniversary of Gather Me, which is the album with Brand New Key on it. And that was the first album, label that was started by an independent artist, me and my husband. And we had an office in, it was then called the Gulf and Western Building, and now it's Trump Tower.
Oh, really?
Isn't that irony?
Yeah.
And we had the 32nd floor, the entire floor, and my office, I had wallpapered in a Paisley Schumacher wallpaper. Can you imagine a corporate building like that?
Wow.
And I wallpapered, and I had a little kitchen, and I was, all cute stuff. And I always wondered if when they took it over and it became Trump Tower, if they left my wallpaper up.
Do you have any dream projects that you haven't done that you're thinking about doing in the future?
Well, I would really like to do a documentary. I'd like to. I have 2 plays, musicals that I wrote. I'd like to get them out there, like even if it was little theater or something. But I'd like people to see the 2 musicals that I wrote. One is Melanie and the Record Man, and the other is a musical called 7 Days. It's about a woman who has 7 days to save the planet. And it might be coming to fruition right now.
You want to do documentary?
It's starting to feel like, what's happening out there?
Documentary and a musical, right? You want to do documentary and musical?
It's a musical, yes. And I wrote all original songs for these things, and we are going to be putting out an album of new songs. I've been writing a lot. And
what about a documentary on yourself? How about the Melanie story?
The Melanie documentary, yeah. There are so many ways of doing it. There's the love story of Peter and myself, and then there's the business of the music business story, and all the obstacles and the problems that we encountered over the years, and I guess it's a story of not going with what people tell you to do. But that's, to me, I think that is why I survived, because it's hard enough to do what you do and get up night after night and love what you're doing. But to think about doing stuff like I've been offered to do this record, do that record, and you'll have a hit. And I knew they were right. And I'd have much nicer dressing rooms, etc. But imagine getting up night after night and not loving what you do. I can't imagine that how I would have pulled off having a career where I was doing things that I wasn't really wholeheartedly behind. You know, I think as far as what I've done, I don't have regrets.
That's great. That's great. So you're very fortunate. You've had a very interesting, exciting, and rewarding life and career in entertainment, and that's not something that everybody can say. You have a lot to be proud of, Melanie. You're very interesting. You are very
Thank you.
Right. So anyway, how can people, if people want to find out more about you, how can they go about doing that?
Well, they can go to my website. It's the Melanie website, melaniesofka.com, and they can, Bandcamp is the one place where I sell my albums. I'm not distributed by any major record label. I just do it myself, so they can go there and get their Melanie CDs, and of course the new CD of songs I sang at Woodstock, and I have a lot of. I did the Gather Me remastered. Gather Me is on there, and some of the newer things that people haven't heard. And it's digital, by the way. It's not a physical CD yet, but I am working on a package of all of my neighborhood recordings from 70 to 1974. And so visit me on my website, melaniesofka.com, my Bandcamp. I have Instagram.com, Melanie link to Instagram. And if you email me your email, I will send you all my links and everything. Okay.
Okay. You have a YouTube channel also. I noticed.
Oh yeah, I do. In fact, we did the show on YouTube, and I have a lot of so many different YouTubes. But again, with all of the rules, huh? Anywhere. Oh yeah, I found a new format called Anywhere Seat, and it was very easy for people, because there's so many glitchy things that happen when you do online concerts. Hopefully I'll be getting out there in real life again quickly, but until that happens, I'm doing Anywhere Seat, and people can find the concerts up there. And I was thinking of doing album by album. My husband was commercial minded, and I was so not commercial minded, and he would say, Melanie, we're putting out an album, do the songs from that album. But I would always want to give people, stuff from when they first started out, and maybe a new song that nobody ever heard. So, the shows were a little more adventurous.
Well, you've been very fortunate with your talent, meeting the right people. What a life! What a real life! What a pleasure you are. Let's give a shout out now. Oh, by the way, I did subscribe to your YouTube channel. I already did.
Super. Okay.
I want to say I give a shout out to your publicist, Mickey.
Yeah, he's not my publicist anymore.
Oh, he isn't? Oh, I thought he was.
He
really?
Involved. His life became a little tumultuous. Right now it's just us.
I didn't know that because through him is how I was able to interview up.
I know.
Oh.
But I have been talking to different representatives and to help me get bookings and things like that, because I'm certainly not good at that myself, and we'll be working with different people on, again, Article 27 is a good way to reach me and all my social media. I have a Patreon. You can subscribe to Patreon, and that's been a lot of fun. We're like a little family. I sort of know everybody by heart, you know. We talk about things that, you know, you don't normally get to talk to a performer about. So I write, you know, journals and entries and get them out there in poems.
You're very talented all the way around. I mean, you have so many talents. You have so much charisma and chutzpah. And charm is what you do.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right, Melody. Very good, Neil. Anyway, before we get ready to wrap up the show, there is something. It would be a treat, like a blast from the past. If you would, I mean, I love all many of your songs, but my favorite, of course, the Brand New Key. How could you ever forget? It's unforgettable. If you could sing that for myself and for the many fans, it would be a real treat. Like I say, a real blast from the past for you to sing that.
Woo! Well, I'm not I haven't opened up my throat today, and
yeah, I know you don't have a guitar there.
I still do that song. I still do that song because, you know, again, when I first started my career, and I had this huge hit that overshadowed everything I had ever done before. It was, you know, nobody remembered Lay Down Candles in the Rain anymore. Nobody remembered Look What They've Done to My Song. Nobody remembered Beautiful People or Peaceful Calm. All anybody wanted to hear was, I've got a brand new pair of roller skates. You got a brand new key. I think that we should get together, try them out, you see. La 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 la. Oh, I got a brand new pair of roller skates. You got a brand new key.
That's cute.
Can you see the blues in there? Do you
see
the blues
yeah.
in there?
Oh yeah. You did a duet also. You did a duet with Miley Cyrus in 2020. You're doing Look What They've Done with My Song, Ma.
Yeah, we did that, and we did Peaceful Come, and a new song that I had just written. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was.
That was fun. Yeah.
Quite a.
And you had Ring the Bell. Ring the Bell was another song you did back in.
Ring the Living Bell.
Living Bell.
Right.
Over there in when you started over there.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I'm still here and I'm still doing it, and you know, again, might not be too pretty, but it's going to happen anyway.
More online shows,
right?
And I'm doing online shows, so if you check out my social media, you know, you're going to be able to find out what I'm doing.
We can email them on this. We can email when we're doing it.
Oh yeah, I'll email you.
Okay, great.
When we're doing it, so you could tell people. Okay.
You have a great son. Bo was very helpful.
I know he's taking out the trash. Believe it or not.
I told him he's lucky to have you as a mother, and I'm sure he feels the same. That you're lucky to have him. You're lucky to have him as a son. So.
Yeah, it has its moments.
And apparently he's come with you to concerts. That's what I read. You know.
Oh yeah, we do. We write together now, and he supports me musically and emotionally and every other way, and we're a duo right now. Right,
the Woodstock. That's right. Woodstock is where you did the Ring the Bell. That's right.
At Woodstock, I sang "Mama, Mama."
Right.
And tuning my guitar, and Animal Crackers.
Oh yeah.
There was the.
That wasn't the one. That wasn't the Shirley Temple one. No, it was another one. Animal.
No, not Animal Crackers in My Soup. No, that was eat your animal crackers, 'cause my mother told me so long ago. If you eat your animal crackers, the children in Europe won't starve anymore.
I like that. Look What They Do with My Song, Ma. I love that one. I love the nickel one. Those two. Boy.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can you sing the nickel song?
No.
No, you don't want to sing it.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Or Look What They Do with My Song, Ma. Okay. Once we get going, it's hard to stop. But anyway, Melody, you are just a delight. You really are. I've really enjoyed this very much. talking to you about your life and researching and talking to you and interviewing. It's a pleasure. And I want to say you're certainly welcome. And you're warm and friendly and talented. You're everything. That's what can I say. So to all my fans and friends, I want to say always keep a smile on your face and a song in your heart. Until next time, happy trails and blaze out.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to be a guest on an entertainment Zoom talk show, please send us an email at amazingjbshow@gmail.com. Remember, all of our guests will receive a complimentary DVD of their appearance on the show. All of our shows receive at least 2,000 views, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the amazing, original Johnny Blaze has just left the building. Good night and God bless. Well, thank you.